Truth doesn't shout. It walks in, uninvited, quiet, undeniable. And when it does, you only have two choices: stand still and protect your peace, or chase comfort and call it love. But peace has no appetite for lies. Manhattan knew how to hold its breath. Inside the grand ballroom of the Aldrich Hotel, everything shimmered, light on crystal glassware, reflections off silk gowns, the hush of wealth pressed into every corner. People spoke softly, moved gracefully, smiled perfectly. And in the center of it all stood Serena White. Her dress wasn't loud. It never had to be. Ice blue, tailored to her frame, soft against her skin. Her hair fell behind her shoulders in a simple sweep. No tiara, no flash, just presence. Tonight was the engagement announcement, not a proposal. That had already happened in Malibu, under soft sky, between calm voices. Tonight was the formal mark. Logan Riley had asked her to share a future. She had said yes. And now they were surrounded by his world, his board members, his business allies, his curated friends. Serena didn't fidget. She never did. A woman raised on the south side of Chicago, she had learned to read rooms before speaking, learned how to hold her head high in conference halls and corner offices. What mattered wasn't how loud you entered, it was what you stayed silent about and still carried. She stood beside a small podium now, her champagne untouched, one hand resting on the thin stack of notes she'd scribbled just that morning. Logan had stepped out minutes earlier. A call, he'd said. She glanced toward the ballroom doors. Still closed. Across the room, a server adjusted a candle. A guest leaned to whisper something behind a champagne flute. Small things, normal things. Her heart beat steady, but her thoughts moved ahead. She wasn't a girl dreaming of fairy tales. She had waited for love to show consistency, not theatrics. And Logan had done that, until now. A soft ding silenced the piano. The music stopped. A pause swept across the room. A moment, quiet, delicate, just before the sound of hinges broke it. The ballroom doors opened, and Serena turned her head. The room didn't gasp. It recoiled. In through the doors walked a woman who didn't fit the script. Not dressed for attention, not painted for applause. Her heels made no sound against the marble floor. Her coat was plain. Her eyes, not. She walked straight, no hesitation, no scanning the crowd, until she reached the edge of the dance floor. And beside her, a child, no older than 2. Small hand wrapped loosely around the woman's fingers. Hair pulled into gentle curls. Eyes wide, curious, sharp. Serena's gaze locked with the woman's. It didn't feel like the first time. The woman raised her chin, just enough to speak clearly. "I won't stay long," she said. Her voice didn't tremble. "But someone in this room needs to hear the truth." Murmurs started. Heads turned. She shifted slightly, placing her hand over the toddler's shoulder. "My name is Maya," she said. "And Logan Riley is my husband." Stillness. Someone set down a glass. The clink echoed like a drop in an empty cave. "And this," she added, "is our daughter." The little girl blinked up at the lights overhead, then looked across the room. Right at Logan, who had re-entered through the side, steps behind Serena. His eyes locked on the child. He didn't speak. He didn't move. Maya's voice didn't rise. "We've been married for 7 years. I've spent the last 2 wondering if the gaps in his calendar had a name. Now I see they do." No one interrupted her. She wasn't performing. She was declaring. "Tonight was never about celebration," she said. "It was a curtain. I'm pulling it back." Then she looked at Serena, not with pity, not with anger, with quiet recognition. "You didn't know," Maya said softly. "But now you do." The toddler tilted her head toward Logan again, and every guest in the room could see it. Same jawline, same eyes. Serena didn't flinch, but her fingers slipped from the stack of note cards. No one picked them up. Silence pressed down hard. Not the calm kind, not the respectful kind. The kind that steals air from a room and forces people to notice their own breathing. Whispers began at the edges first, low, careful. People leaned toward one another without fully turning their heads. A woman near the back covered her mouth. A man adjusted his cufflinks again and again, like movement might protect him from discomfort. Serena heard none of it clearly. Her attention narrowed to one thing: Logan. He stood a few feet away now, close enough for her to see the tension in his jaw, close enough to hear his breath when he exhaled. His hands stayed at his sides. No reach, no denial, no explanation, nothing. In that stillness, understanding arrived faster than emotion, not confusion, not shock. Clarity, every delayed reply, every sudden trip, every moment he'd framed absence as pressure. She replayed them without effort, like scenes already waiting in order. Her chest tightened. The room tilted, just slightly. She pressed her heel into the carpet to steady herself. Someone cleared their throat. Another guest laughed nervously, then stopped. Serena's ears rang, not loudly, just enough to blur the edges of sound. She looked down at the ring on her finger. It felt heavier now, not because of its size, because of what it stood for. Across the room, Maya stood still, the child leaning gently against her leg. Protective, grounded. Serena admired that without meaning to. Logan finally lifted his eyes. They met hers. He opened his mouth, then closed it. And in that pause, something important ended. Serena didn't wait for an excuse. She didn't need details. Words had already failed. Her pulse slowed. Her shoulders settled. She reached up, slid the ring from her finger, and closed her hand around it once. No tears fell. She lifted her head, turned away from Logan, and stepped forward, past the podium, past the guests, past the version of her life that had required silence to survive. The doors felt farther now, but she walked anyway. She passed the servers, the floral displays, the soft piano, now paused mid-piece, the photographer, who slowly lowered his camera. No one stopped her. No one dared. As Serena walked, her mind split, present on the outside, but racing inside. Malibu came first. The villa on the cliff, the sunlight that poured through wide windows. Logan standing barefoot, holding a ring box, his voice calm, no rehearsed speech. He said he wanted a life of peace with her, and she believed him. Then Paris, the balcony outside their suite, a glass of wine between them. Her head on his chest, while the Eiffel Tower blinked in the distance. He had kissed her hair and said nothing, just held her. Then Vancouver, the jet, the long flight, the way he had worked through most of it, then turned to her just before landing to say, "Thank you for letting me breathe." Every moment had felt solid, but now Serena understood what had held it together. Distance, secrecy, silence, and that silence was still the only thing Logan had to offer. She reached the ballroom doors, the same ones that had opened minutes ago to bring in truth. This time they closed behind her. No final glance, no final word. Just footsteps into a hallway where the air felt different, clean, honest. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. She didn't need more information. She had enough. She didn't need closure. The door had closed for her. She didn't need revenge. She chose dignity. Would you walk away right there? Or demand the truth anyway? Have you ever discovered everything you believed was built on someone else's silence? If you were Serena, what would you do next? Comment below. Like this video if you're still watching. And subscribe now to hear the full story. Serena White was raised on the south side of Chicago, in a brownstone where Saturday mornings smelled like cinnamon rolls and Friday nights echoed with her uncle's old records. Her world wasn't loud, but it was full. It was real. She had grown up around people who believed in showing up. If someone loved you, they picked up your call. If they disappointed you, they said so. Her mother, Celeste, worked double shifts as a nurse and still made time to braid her hair every Sunday evening. Her father, Maurice, wasn't always around, but her grandfather filled the gap with discipline wrapped in quiet affection. Family wasn't perfect, but it was consistent. She learned early that structure gave peace. That consistency meant safety. That being seen meant everything. In school, Serena never sought popularity. She focused, listened, paid attention. By the time she got to college, her instinct for strategy and attention to detail had become a kind of armor, one she wore comfortably. In group projects, she was always the one who led. In internships, the one who stayed late. She didn't just want success. She earned it, step by step. At 31, Serena worked in brand marketing and had carved out her place in a competitive firm downtown. She wasn't flashy. Her tailored coat spoke softly. Her shoes were always clean. Her words even more so. Her calendar lived on color-coded tabs. Her fridge had a grocery list arranged by aisle. She believed discipline kept emotion from running the show. Love? That would come too. But it had to arrive dressed in respect, not performance. She didn't care for extravagant gestures. She wanted presence, thoughtfulness, a man who could understand quiet strength, not compete with it. She wasn't waiting to be rescued. She was building. And life, so far, had rewarded her patience. Until a Wednesday in March changed that. The conference wasn't her idea. Serena had just wrapped a campaign pitch that had drained her mentally. Her manager suggested she attend the Brand Power Forum in downtown Chicago. Good networking, he said. Take the weekend to breathe. She arrived in a neutral blouse and black trousers, never one for logos or labels. The hotel buzzed with activity. Panels, booths, long lines for overpriced espresso. Most people there wore ambition like cologne. She stayed by the coffee bar, away from the sponsored chaos. That's where Logan Riley introduced himself. He didn't push a card in her hand or lead with a title. Just offered a polite, "Hi, I don't usually come to these either." His suit was simple, his tone low. He didn't speak like a man trying to dominate a room. He listened more than he talked. They ended up sharing a table near the back, sipping weak hotel coffee and talking, not about business strategies or earnings, but about things that mattered. She told him how branding wasn't just about logos but about behavior, how companies needed to reflect their values in action. He nodded thoughtfully and said, "You sound like someone who understands responsibility." He didn't flaunt Thorn Global. In fact, he only mentioned his company when she asked. He called it an international operations firm. That was it. No long list of assets, no statistics. She appreciated that. Before they parted, he asked if she would join him for dinner that evening. Serena hesitated. He didn't press. "Think about it," he said, offering a gentle smile. "If you show up, I'll be glad. If not, I'll understand." He left it there. She stood by the hotel window long after he walked away, surprised that someone had asked her to dinner without trying to impress her first. Serena showed up. A small Italian restaurant on the West Loop side of the city. No valet, no piano player. Just warm lighting, close tables, and handwritten menus. Logan arrived a few minutes early. He'd chosen a table tucked into a corner, not for privacy, but because he noticed she didn't enjoy loud crowds. They talked for 2 hours. Not once did he check his phone. He asked about her family, and when she shared about her upbringing, he didn't tilt his head with pity. He simply listened. He shared, too, brief mentions of private schools, structured routines, the pressure to succeed quietly. His world had been different, but he didn't use it as leverage. He talked about his mother's silence, his father's expectations, the way pressure sometimes dressed up as dignity. He told her that most people misunderstood strength. "They think it's volume," he said, stirring his glass of water. "But I think real strength is being able to sit still in your own truth." She looked at him carefully then, not because the line impressed her, but because it sounded lived in, not memorized. By the end of the night, Serena wasn't in love, but she was seen, heard, considered. As they stepped outside, he didn't offer to take her home, just stood near her while she waited for her rideshare. Respect in his posture, space in his gesture. When she left, she thought, if he calls again, I'll answer. He did. The next day. Over the weeks that followed, Serena got used to Logan's rhythm. He didn't text in paragraphs, didn't flood her with compliments. His messages were simple, landed safe. Thinking about you. Hope today was kind. Their schedules didn't always align. Logan traveled often, Tokyo, Toronto, sometimes Los Angeles. But he never used his work as a shield. He called from airports, sent her pictures of books he saw in terminals that reminded him of her interests. He never bragged about his money. When she eventually Googled Thorn Global, her jaw tightened. He hadn't lied. He had just downplayed the scale. The company held partnerships across continents. His net worth placed him in rooms most people never entered. But he had never once weaponized it. When she brought it up, he simply said, "That part of my life is real, but it's not what I lead with. I'd rather know if you'd like me without the suit." She did, and he made it easy to believe that his intentions were clear. He listened, brought her lemon ginger tea when she had a cold, remembered her niece's birthday, never asked her to change her routines. They didn't rush toward labels. They moved at the speed of trust. Logan's normal wasn't about being average. It was about showing up without armor. And for the first time in a long time, Serena believed someone might stay. Not because he needed her, but because he chose to. Logan's first invitation came wrapped in context, not pressure. They were sitting at a quiet cafe in Lincoln Park, Chicago fading into fall around them. Serena had ordered peppermint tea. Logan sipped espresso, his phone turned face down between them. "I have to be in Paris next week," he said casually. "There's an investor summit. It's 3 days long. Boring panels, lots of handshakes. But after hours, it's Paris." She tilted her head slightly, waiting. "I'd like you to come," he said, "as company. Not for show, just us." Serena didn't answer immediately. She never rushed to yes, especially when it came to unfamiliar territory. Logan noticed. "You don't have to say anything now," he added. "Just think about it." She appreciated that. And a few days later, she said yes, with conditions. She would book her own flight. She would keep her work laptop with her. She'd stay in her own room, not because she didn't trust him, but because she trusted herself. Logan respected all of it. That trip marked the beginning of something unspoken between them. The way he opened space without demand. The way she moved through his world without losing herself in it. Paris was first. Then came Vancouver 2 months later. Malibu 3 after that. Each trip was tied to his work. International panels, client dinners, annual summits. But Serena was never treated as an accessory. She wasn't hidden, but she wasn't displayed either. He never introduced her as his girlfriend. He simply said, "This is Serena." And the way he said her name carried weight. She watched him in meetings, sharp, measured, firm. But outside those rooms, he softened, laughed more, slept better. She was beginning to see 2 versions of Logan, and neither one felt dishonest. He didn't need her to be anything other than what she already was. And in that, she found something rare, freedom in closeness. Even as her passport filled with stamps, Serena never let herself drift from her own life. She still lived in the same mid-rise apartment on Chicago's North Side, still bought groceries on Sundays, still meal prepped for the week, still set 3 alarms every morning, one to wake up, one to stretch, one to leave the house. Her desk at the marketing firm remained organized, her calendar color-coded. She declined projects when necessary, but never used Logan's name as an excuse. He wasn't her upgrade. He was her companion. And she made that clear. Some weekends, she flew out to meet him. Other weekends, she stayed home, caught up on laundry, made her own tea. Her friends often asked, "Isn't it hard to date someone so busy, so far?" She would answer simply, "I'm busy too." Logan never tried to move her in. Never asked her to quit her job, never hinted that her ambitions should bend to his convenience. If anything, he admired her focus. When they were apart, he respected her time. When they were together, he protected their space. In Paris, she logged into meetings from the hotel lobby while Logan was in sessions upstairs. In Vancouver, she drafted campaign outlines from a coffee shop near their hotel. In Malibu, she politely declined a sunset yacht invite to finish edits on a pitch due Monday. Logan didn't sulk. He brought her a salad and sat quietly beside her until she finished. This balance didn't come from rules. It came from rhythm. She had her life. He had his. And in between, they created shared pauses where no one had to perform. That was what kept her grounded. The knowledge that nothing about her identity had been erased by proximity to his. If anything, she felt more herself than ever. They didn't talk about the future yet, not directly, but closeness showed up in small ways. In Paris, Serena fell asleep during a drive from the summit to the hotel. When she woke up, she found Logan had draped his coat over her shoulders. She pretended not to notice, but the softness lingered. In Vancouver, their hotel room had a balcony overlooking the harbor. One morning, Serena woke up early, stepped outside with her tea, and found Logan already there, reading, barefoot, wrapped in a grey hoodie. He looked up and smiled without a word. In Malibu, they stayed in a beach villa arranged through his assistant. It wasn't excessive, just quiet, spacious, filled with warm wood and sea air. They cooked eggs in the morning, walked barefoot along the edge of the shore, talked without any agenda. The connection deepened between the ordinary moments. He started memorizing her preferences, how she liked her eggs, how she took her coffee, what kind of books she packed in her carry-on. She noticed how he changed hotel rooms if they were too loud, how he always made time to check in with his assistant, even mid-trip, how he slept deeper when she read beside him. There was no performance, only presence. At the airport, he waited at the gate until she boarded. When she returned from trips he couldn't join, she always found a small note in her mailbox, "Welcome home," signed with his full name. Never rushed, never digital. And slowly, Serena started to recognize that this wasn't something she had to survive or manage. She could simply feel it. Logan made space. And in that space, she started to want more. It happened in Malibu, after a long walk on the beach just before dinner. They were sitting on the patio, wine glasses between them, the sun inching toward the horizon. The air had cooled slightly, and Logan leaned back in his chair, quiet. Serena watched him. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded, but it wasn't convincing. "I've been thinking about something," he said. "You're easy to be around. It's rare. I don't usually get that." She waited. He looked down at his glass. "I've never been great at committing, not because I want other people, but because I don't like feeling owned." Serena didn't flinch. "You think love means ownership?" "I used to," he admitted. "I've been with people who measured everything. How much I called, how fast I replied, how much I gave. And I always felt like I was failing." She nodded slowly. Logan looked at her again. "But with you, I don't feel behind. I feel clear." She stayed quiet, not because she didn't have words, but because he needed space to finish. "I don't want to lose that," he said. Serena finally spoke. "Then don't." Simple, firm. He smiled at that, just a small pull at the corner of his mouth. They didn't define anything that night, but the silence between them was no longer empty. It was safe. And from that moment on, Logan looked at her like he wasn't just grateful, he was learning. The villa rested quietly above the coastline, far enough from the road that the outside world felt muted. Morning light filtered through wide glass doors, soft and steady. Serena stood barefoot on cool stone tiles, mug of tea warming her hands, watching the ocean stretch endlessly ahead. This was Logan's idea of rest. No assistance, no meetings, no flights scheduled, just a few days to slow down before another cycle of travel pulled him away again. They had spent the first 2 days cooking simple meals, walking along the shore, talking late into the night without phones nearby. It felt intentional, almost careful. Serena noticed that. She had learned to recognize when people tried to rush moments into permanence. Logan hadn't done that. He didn't flood her with promises or press for reassurance. He let the days unfold naturally, like he trusted time to do its work. That morning, he was quieter than usual. They ate breakfast outside. Eggs, fruit, toast. Logan barely touched his plate. Serena noticed but didn't ask. She had learned when silence carried meaning and when it simply needed room. After breakfast, Logan suggested a walk along the edge of the property. The path curved gently down toward the water, bordered by native plants and low stone walls. They walked side by side. Serena spoke first. "You're thinking hard today." He smiled faintly. "You always notice. I pay attention." They stopped near a wide overlook where the land dropped toward the sea. Waves moved steadily below them. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just constant. Logan inhaled slowly. "I don't want this to sound sudden," he said. "Because it isn't." Her chest tightened slightly. Not from fear, from awareness. He turned to face her fully. Not kneeling. Not performing. Just standing there, hands relaxed at his sides. "I've spent most of my life managing distance," he said. "I thought it kept things stable. But with you, I don't feel the need to protect myself that way." Serena didn't interrupt. "I know commitment has scared me before," he continued. "But this feels different, not heavy, not urgent. Just right." He reached into his pocket, slow enough that she could stop him if she wanted to. She didn't. The ring was simple, elegant, no oversized stone, no unnecessary shine. It looked chosen with care. He held it between them, not pushing it forward. "I'm not asking you to rush," he said. "I'm asking you to build something with me, at your pace, with honesty." Serena felt her breath catch, not because of the ring, because of the timing. She looked past him, out toward the ocean, letting her thoughts line up. She had never imagined herself standing on a cliff in Malibu, considering a future that felt both grounded and unknown. She loved him, but love wasn't enough for her. She needed trust that didn't bend under pressure, stability that didn't depend on silence, and she wasn't certain yet. "I need a moment," she said quietly. Logan nodded immediately. No frustration, no tension. "Take all the time you need." She stepped away, heart steady but full. This wasn't fear holding her back. It was respect for herself. Serena walked toward the edge of the path, letting space settle between them. She wasn't testing him. She wasn't pulling away. She was listening to her instincts. Logan didn't follow her. He waited. That mattered. When she turned back, she saw him standing exactly where she left him, gaze focused outward, not restless. "I'm not afraid of you," she said as she returned. "I'm careful with my life." "I know," he replied. "That's one of the things I admire." She studied his face, not for charm, for cracks. "Talk to me," she said. Logan exhaled slowly. "I've built success by controlling outcomes," he said. "That works in business. It doesn't work in relationships. I know that now." She remained silent. "I used to think commitment meant giving up parts of myself," he continued. "But with you, I don't feel smaller. I feel steadier." Serena tilted her head slightly. "And when pressure comes," he didn't answer quickly. "That mattered too." "I'll stay," he said finally. "Not because it's easy, because it's right." She searched his eyes again. No urgency, no performance, just resolve. "I don't want to replace your life," he added. "I want to stand beside it." That sentence landed deeply. Serena thought about her apartment, her work, her routines, her family, the way she had kept her independence even while growing closer to him. He had never tried to change any of that. He took a step closer, careful not to crowd her. "This isn't about a ring," he said. "It's about choosing you, every day." She nodded slowly. This wasn't the kind of assurance built on promises of comfort. It was built on consistency. She took the ring from his hand, feeling its weight, not heavy, balanced. Her hesitation softened, not erased, but respected. Serena didn't say yes immediately. She breathed first. Then she looked at Logan and smiled. Not wide, not emotional. Calm, certain. "Yes," she said. No cheering, no applause, no audience. Just two people standing in the quiet, the ocean below them steady and unchanged. Logan didn't kneel after that. He didn't rush to place the ring. He waited until she offered her hand. He slid it onto her finger slowly, deliberately. It fit perfectly. They didn't kiss right away. They laughed softly instead, the kind of laughter that comes when tension releases and relief follows. They sat on the low stone wall afterward, shoulders touching, watching the waves roll in. No announcements were made that day. No photos were taken. They cooked dinner together that night, opened a bottle of wine, talked about nothing important at all. Later, when Serena lay awake beside him, she stared at the ceiling and felt something settle into place. This wasn't fantasy. It felt grounded. That mattered more than anything else. Serena flew back to Chicago alone, not because Logan asked her to, because she wanted to carry the news home herself. She landed on a grey afternoon, familiar clouds hanging low over the city. Her apartment welcomed her back with quiet comfort. She unpacked slowly, pausing now and then to glance at the ring on her hand. That evening, she drove to her mother's house. Celeste opened the door and paused when she saw her daughter's face. "You look settled," she said. Serena smiled. "I feel it." They sat at the kitchen table, tea between them. Serena told her everything, about Malibu, about the ring, about the way Logan had asked without pressure. Celeste listened carefully, asked thoughtful questions, didn't interrupt. "Does he respect your life?" she asked finally. "Yes." "Does he listen when you speak?" "Yes." Celeste nodded. "Then I'm happy for you." The next day, Serena visited her aunt and cousins. Laughter filled the living room. Someone noticed the ring before she mentioned it. Her aunt studied it, then Serena's face. "You sure?" she asked gently. Serena met her gaze. "I am." There were no raised voices, no warnings, just concern wrapped in love. That night, back in her apartment, Serena called Logan. "I told them," she said. "And?" he asked. "They asked the right questions." "And your answers?" "Clear." He smiled through the phone. She could hear it. That was enough. The kitchen smelled like nutmeg and roasted chicken. Serena sat at the end of the dining table in her mother's house, the ring on her finger catching the light from the hanging bulb above. Celeste moved around the kitchen with the same quiet purpose she always had. Her body had slowed some, but her eyes missed nothing. "You want wine or ginger ale?" Celeste asked. "Ginger ale's fine," Serena replied. She poured the drink and placed the glass beside her daughter, then sat down across from her, folding her hands slowly. They didn't speak right away. Celeste didn't rush questions. She never had. She let the silence breathe first. "You told me you said yes," she said finally. Serena nodded. "You told me you feel steady." Another nod. Celeste took a sip of her own drink, then set it down with care. "You're grown, Serena. You don't need my permission." Serena smiled slightly. "I know. But you've always trusted me to ask what matters." Serena's eyes softened. "I still do." Celeste leaned forward just a little. "Is he consistent?" "Yes." "Does he show up?" "Yes." Celeste paused. "Does he make you feel small when you don't agree?" "No." Another pause. "Have you seen him under pressure?" Serena didn't answer immediately. She thought back to Vancouver, to Malibu, to quiet disagreements about logistics or travel. Logan hadn't shouted, hadn't shut down. He had paused, regrouped. "Yes," she said at last. "And I've seen how he handles it." Celeste's nod was slow, not of approval, of understanding. She looked at her daughter closely now. "You love him?" "I do." Celeste's voice dropped, gentle but firm. "Does he love all of you, or the version of you that fits beside his life?" Serena met her gaze without blinking. "He makes room." That was enough for now. Celeste leaned back. "All right then." She stood up, returned to the stove. "When's the party?" "Manhattan. 2 weeks." Celeste didn't flinch. "I'll find my shoes." 2 days later, Serena stopped by her Aunt Denise's place on the south side. It wasn't planned. Just a quick hello. Her aunt was in the front yard pulling weeds from the flower bed. "Come inside," Denise said. "I'm making shrimp stew." They sat by the window, light spilling in across the old wooden table. Serena filled her in. Malibu, the proposal, the quiet yes, the party coming up. Denise smiled, then stirred the pot on the stove without comment. "You like him?" Serena asked. "I don't know him," Denise replied. Serena laughed. "You never hold back, do you?" "Nope, not at my age." She paused. "You seem lighter. That means something." Denise walked back to the table, dried her hands, and sat. "You said he travels a lot. His work takes him around." Denise nodded. "When he's gone, does he check in?" "Yes. Consistently. Always." "Does he go quiet on weekends?" Serena blinked. "Not really. Not really or not at all." She hesitated. "Some weekends are quiet." Denise hummed. "People show you patterns, baby. The question is whether you're looking." Serena didn't get defensive. She knew her aunt's tone. It wasn't suspicion. It was wisdom shaped by life. Denise continued. "It's not about mistrusting him, it's about paying attention. Busy men make time when they want to, especially when they've found someone they value. I think he values me." Denise softened. "I think so too. But don't let the beautiful parts make you blind to anything else." Serena took that in. It wasn't doubt growing in her. It was awareness. There had been a few trips he hadn't mentioned until last minute. A few times his calls came from blocked numbers. Once, he cancelled a video chat last second and didn't follow up until a day later. She had told herself it was just pressure from work, and maybe it was. But her aunt's words made her re-examine the rhythm, not from fear, from clarity. "Keep your eyes open," Denise said as she stood. "Even when your heart's full." Back at her apartment that night, Serena poured herself a glass of water and sat in silence. Her mother's questions, her aunt's concern. Both came from love, but so did trust. She picked up her phone and looked through her texts with Logan. Nothing read as artificial. His words were never dressed in decoration. He said what he meant. He didn't flood her with flattery. He responded when she needed him. When he missed a call, he called back. She had learned over time that no one moved through love without risk. There would always be what-ifs, always space for doubt to whisper if you let it. But Logan hadn't asked her to abandon herself. He had made room. She didn't excuse away the oddities. She noted them. She logged them. But she didn't lead with suspicion. If love meant anything to her, it meant staying grounded while being open. It meant choosing to believe until proven otherwise. Not in foolishness, in dignity. She had grown up around love that was built on showing up when it was hard, not walking away when it was unclear. So she folded the questions, stored them for later, and moved forward. Not blindly, intentionally. She looked at the calendar. The engagement party was coming fast. She hadn't chosen her dress yet. The hotel room was booked. Logan's assistant had confirmed the details. She hadn't heard from him in 16 hours, but he'd said he was flying, and she would wait before reading into it. Trust, after all, meant giving space without fear. The hotel in Manhattan stood tall on East 63rd, near Central Park. Old money elegance, nothing showy, everything sharp. Logan had reserved the ballroom 3 months earlier, long before the proposal. "Just in case," he had said, half smiling. His assistant handled most logistics, invites, floral arrangements, guest lists. Serena only had to approve a few things. But when the dress arrived, she took her time. She stood in her bedroom with the fabric hanging near the mirror, off-white with soft blue threading along the hem. Simple, elegant. Just like her. She tried it on twice before deciding. Her mother would fly in 2 days before the party. Her aunt would take the train. Logan texted every evening with updates, vendor confirmations, head counts, little details. He had been busier than usual. A conference in Zurich, a board meeting in DC. She didn't ask for constant reassurance. But part of her noticed how formal his tone had become. The closer the date got, the less he seemed present. Still, Serena stayed focused. She planned her flight, confirmed her hair appointment, printed her speech notes, just in case Logan wanted her to speak. The night before her flight, She sat on the couch with her phone in hand, scrolling through images of the venue. It was beautiful, expensive. Everything about the event suggested importance, but Serena didn't care about the grandeur. She cared about what the celebration stood for: commitment, transparency, stability. She went to bed early that night, placing her phone on silent, letting the silence feel clean. Tomorrow, she would board a plane. 2 days later, she would stand in a ballroom filled with people from Logan's world. She would wear the ring, smile with grace. She would be ready. Or so she believed. The car pulled up to the entrance of the Aldridge Hotel just past 7 p.m. The winter air was cold but dry, the city lit with quiet promise. Serena stepped out without assistance, her heels striking the pavement with calm grace. Her dress, a soft charcoal silk gown with a high neck and subtle drape, moved effortlessly with her. No sequins, no bold cuts. Her earrings shimmered only when the light caught them. Her hair was parted cleanly and pulled back in a low, polished bun. She didn't need to announce herself. The moment she stepped into the lobby, heads turned, not for glamour, for presence. She walked through the gold-framed doors of the ballroom, her poise steady, heart even. The hotel staff guided her toward the reserved section. A woman from the event team handed her a small printed card with her welcome remarks. She folded it neatly into her clutch. Logan wasn't there yet, but everything else was. The lighting, the champagne, the floral arrangements, the soft quartet playing in the corner. A quiet display of wealth, tastefully done. She looked around and recognized almost no one. That didn't bother her. She wasn't here to be recognized. She was here because she had been chosen. And she had chosen back. This was supposed to be a night that marked a shift in her life. She had done everything right. She'd built a career with her own hands, held her values steady, loved carefully, and now, standing under chandeliers worth more than her first apartment lease, she didn't feel out of place. She felt earned. They arrived in waves. Board members, investors, colleagues from partner firms. Their names carried weight, printed on magazines, floated in acquisition rumors, whispered in boardrooms. But none of them boasted. They didn't need to. The men wore navy and midnight suits, silk ties knotted clean. The women moved in high-end fabrics and muted luxury, beige, slate, pearl. Conversations were low-pitched, polished. Deals weren't discussed. Reputations were maintained. This wasn't a celebration, it was a signal. Logan's engagement marked more than personal change. It was a message of stability to shareholders, a quiet shift in image, settled, matured, grounded. Serena watched all of it unfold. Logan hadn't arrived yet, but his presence was everywhere, in the way the staff moved, in the names being dropped, in the restraint of the decor. He had curated this space down to the minute. But what struck Serena most wasn't the cost. It was the calculation. This wasn't about love on display. It was about alignment, image, control. She held her glass of water, not champagne, and stood near a marble pillar as guests approached with warm, measured greetings. "You must be Serena," a woman said, extending her hand. "Logan's spoken of you." Another man smiled. "We've been expecting this moment." You ground him. It was all phrased gently, beautifully, but none of it was about her. It was about how she fit. She replied with grace. She always did. Still, as the minutes stretched on, she felt the question forming. Where was Logan? She checked her phone. Nothing. Her mother and aunt were seated at a table nearby. Both watched quietly, not interfering. A staff member approached Serena with a subtle nod. "Mr. Riley has arrived. He asked that you prepare to speak in 5. Serena nodded once. She inhaled and took her place near the stage. She never heard the door open. The quartet paused at the end of a set. The clink of glasses continued. Soft conversations ebbed and flowed. Serena stood just off to the side of the stage, fingertips grazing the index cards she had folded earlier. The lights were dimmed slightly, signaling the next transition in the evening. That's when she saw the shift. It started with posture. A woman near the back of the room straightened. Another tilted her head slightly. A man lowered his glass, eyes fixed toward the entrance, and then silence moved like a quiet sweep across the room. Serena turned, slow and deliberate. A woman had entered the ballroom, tall still, wearing a long navy coat, her eyes sharp but not angry. In her arms stood a small child, no older than 2. The child's curls were pulled neatly back. Her small shoes glittered faintly in the low light. They walked forward, step by step, without hesitation. The crowd parted, not rudely, but naturally. As though this woman carried authority, no one dared interrupt. She stopped a few feet from the center, standing directly in line with the stage where Serena now froze. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm, controlled. "My name is Maya," she said. "I won't take long. But the truth belongs here." Serena blinked once. The room felt further away. Maya glanced down at the little girl, then back at the crowd. "Logan Riley is my husband. We've been married 7 years. Gasps didn't erupt. The shock was too cold for that. The child shifted slightly, looking across the room, her eyes wide, unblinking. Maya continued, "This is our daughter. Her name is Faith." No one moved. No one interrupted. And Serena's heart, so careful, so cautious, cracked down the center without sound. Logan stood near the ballroom doors now, not in panic, in stillness. He hadn't tried to stop Maya, hadn't raised his voice, hadn't even approached. He stood rooted, expression unreadable, as eyes turned toward him, some with confusion, others with quiet judgment. Serena looked at him. He didn't flinch. He didn't speak. The child, Faith, turned her head and looked at him too. It was unmistakable. The curve of the jaw, the shape of her eyes, even her mouth, firm but soft at the corners, mirrored his exactly. No one asked for proof. None was needed. Maya's voice stayed level. "I followed patterns, trips, delays, silence. I had questions. I got answers." She turned briefly toward Serena. "I didn't come to shame you," she said. "I came because hiding costs more than confronting." Then she turned to Logan. "You once said, silence protects people," she added. "But it only protects the ones who already have power." She looked back at her daughter. "I choose truth." For her. The room didn't explode. It folded. Serena didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't ask for an explanation. She watched Logan, watched him offer no denial, no correction, no story to rewrite the moment. And that, above all, told her everything. She turned slowly. Her mother and aunt had already stood, their faces steady, unshaken. Serena took one breath, one step. Then she walked down the side of the ballroom toward the same doors that had welcomed her hours ago. She didn't need to say goodbye. The truth had already done that for her. Serena did not rush. That was the first thing she noticed about herself as she moved through the hotel corridor. Her steps were steady. Her shoulders stayed square. Her breath remained even, as if her body had decided to protect her mind from collapsing too soon. The hallway outside the ballroom felt longer than it had earlier that evening. The carpet muted the sound of her heels. The walls, once decorative, now seemed blank. She passed framed photographs without seeing them. No one followed her. Not Logan. Not an assistant. Not a member of security. She reached the elevator and pressed the button once. The doors slid open almost immediately. She stepped inside alone. The reflection in the mirrored wall startled her, not because she looked broken, because she didn't. Her face was calm, pale but composed. Her eyes were clear. The ring still rested on her finger. The elevator descended in silence. When the doors opened in the lobby, Serena walked past the front desk without slowing. The hotel staff glanced up, recognized her, and then looked away. No questions, no offers of help. Outside, the city carried on. Cars moved. Lights changed. A doorman held the door for another guest who laughed into a phone. Manhattan did not pause for heartbreak. Serena stepped into the cold air and felt it ground her. She didn't cry. Not yet. She didn't look back at the building, even though she knew Logan was still inside. still standing in the place where the truth had finally refused to stay hidden. She walked to the curb, raised her hand, and a cab stopped. "Airport," she said when she got in. The driver nodded and pulled away. Only then did Serena allow herself to sit back and close her eyes. This wasn't escape. It was departure. Her phone vibrated 5 minutes into the drive. She didn't look at it. Another vibration followed. Then another. By the time the cab reached the West Side Highway, the screen lit up again. Logan's name filled it. Once, twice, 3 times. She turned the phone face down on the seat beside her. The driver glanced at her in the mirror. "You okay, miss?" "Yes," she said. And it was true in the only way that mattered. She was upright. She was leaving. She was choosing herself. The phone buzzed again, then stopped. Moments later, a text arrived, then another. She didn't read them. She knew what they would say. Explanations, fragments of honesty arriving too late, words that might have mattered yesterday or last week, or before the ring ever touched her finger. But not now. She wasn't interested in reasons. She had witnessed reality. Silence, when it mattered most, had been Logan's choice, and she would not reward it by staying. At the airport, Serena moved with quiet efficiency. She checked in, passed security, found her gate, sat near the window. Only then did she pick up her phone. She scrolled past the missed calls without opening a single message. She blocked his number, not out of anger, out of clarity. The final boarding call echoed through the terminal. Serena stood, slipped her phone into her bag, and joined the line. When the plane lifted off, she watched the city shrink beneath the clouds. And for the first time that night, her chest tightened, not with pain, but with relief. Chicago greeted her with grey skies and a familiar chill. Her mother was waiting at the gate, coat buttoned, scarf wrapped tight. Serena spotted her immediately. Celeste's eyes found her daughter before Serena could speak. They didn't embrace right away. Celeste studied her face first. "You ready to come home?" she asked softly. Serena nodded. They walked out together, side by side. At the house, the lights were already on. Her aunt's car sat in the driveway. The smell of soup drifted through the front door before it even opened. Inside, the kitchen was full. Her aunt stood by the stove. Her cousin leaned against the counter. Someone had set bread on the table. Another pot simmered quietly. No one asked questions. No one filled the space with commentary. They made room for her at the table, poured her tea, sat close without crowding. Serena placed her bag down and slipped out of her coat. The ring caught the light as she moved. Her aunt noticed but said nothing. They ate in silence at first, not heavy, just respectful. After a while, Celeste reached across the table and covered Serena's hand with her own. "You don't have to explain tonight," she said. Serena swallowed. "I know." The house felt safe, familiar, unchanged. That mattered. She hadn't lost everything. She had returned to what had always been real. It happened later, after the dishes were washed, after the others had gone to bed, after the house had settled into quiet. Serena stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the sink. Her reflection in the dark window looked smaller than usual. Celeste entered without knocking, wrapped in her robe. "You still awake?" she said gently. Serena nodded. Her throat felt tight. Celeste stepped closer. "Come here." The moment her mother's arms wrapped around her, the wall finally gave way. Serena's breath hitched. Her shoulders shook. The tears came fast, hot, unfiltered. "I didn't know," she said, voice breaking. "I didn't know." Celeste held her tighter. "I know. I did everything right," Serena whispered. "I paid attention. I didn't rush. I asked the hard questions." Celeste pressed her cheek against her daughter's head. "Sometimes people hide well. That isn't your fault." Serena pulled back slightly, tears streaking her face. "I feel stupid." "No," Celeste said firmly. "You feel hurt. There's a difference." Serena covered her face with her hands. "He let me stand there. He let me believe." Celeste guided her to a chair and knelt in front of her. And when the truth showed up, you walked away. Serena looked up. That's strength, her mother said. Even if it hurts right now. The tears slowed. Serena wiped her face, breathing deeply. She looked down at her hand and slid the ring off slowly, placing it on the table between them. It made a soft sound as it landed. Celeste didn't touch it. Neither did Serena. Some things didn't need to be picked up again. The envelope arrived on a Monday. It wasn't hand-delivered. It came through regular mail. Neutral packaging, typed label, return address from a legal firm in Midtown Manhattan. Serena recognized the name. She didn't open it immediately. She left it on the counter while she finished washing the dishes, watered her plants, answered 3 emails. But eventually, she sat at her kitchen table, peeled it open carefully, and pulled out a series of documents. The first page had her full name at the top. The second included words like confidentiality, non-disclosure, and compensation. Her breath stayed steady, but her jaw locked. It wasn't written with cruelty. It was clinical, cold, clean. The document laid out what Logan was asking: silence. It framed it as protection for all involved. It mentioned reputational damage and unintentional harm. There was a proposed financial settlement, enough to cover years of rent, or a mortgage, or a life that didn't require punching in for work anymore. There was also a clause that made her stomach turn. She would agree not to publicly acknowledge the engagement ever occurred. Not online, not in conversation, not in writing. As if the past 6 months had never happened. Her phone buzzed hours later. Another unknown number. Another message from someone else, not Logan, offering to walk her through the terms. She didn't respond. She didn't sign. She didn't even finish reading all of it. She placed the papers back in the envelope, sealed it with tape, and slid it into the drawer beside her passport. The offer wasn't surprising, but the insult was clear. Logan had chosen wealth as his language again, and she refused to speak it back. The law firm in Chicago came recommended by a friend who had gone through a messy business separation 2 years earlier. Serena didn't call first. She walked in, asked to schedule a consultation, and 2 days later sat across from a woman named Angela Waters, early 40s, sharp-eyed, dressed in deep grey with no jewelry but a simple wedding band. Angela read through the envelope Serena handed her without commentary. When she finished, she leaned back, fingers pressed together. "There's nothing illegal here," she said. "But it's calculated." Serena nodded. Angela continued, "What's interesting is this language right here, acknowledgement of mutual resolution. That's a tool. It implies you were part of something that needs settling." "I wasn't," Serena said. Angela nodded. "That's why they want your signature. It reframes what happened." She pushed another document toward Serena. "This clause here, see it? It says, if you share this experience verbally or online, it's considered defamation." Serena frowned. "Even if it's true, even then, it's vague enough to cause trouble. They don't want facts. They want silence." Angela didn't look angry. She looked practiced, like she'd seen this play before. "They're hoping you'll be overwhelmed," she said, "that you'll take the money, disappear quietly, and never mention his name again." Serena exhaled. Angela leaned forward. "What you choose to do next is up to you. But I'll say this, power doesn't like noise. It likes edits, controlled narratives." Serena's voice was steady. "I don't want a lawsuit. I want the truth to remain mine." "Then don't sign," Angela said. Serena stood, gathered the envelope, and buttoned her coat. "I won't." The next morning, Serena sent her answer. No letter. No drama. Just a short professional email to the legal representative listed on the NDA. She declined the agreement, declined the offer, declined the conditions. No counter, no negotiation, no comment. 2 hours later, her phone rang again, a different number. She ignored it. The silence that followed confirmed something for her. Logan didn't know how to respond when control failed. There were no more calls, no more emails, no follow-up proposals, just stillness. She half expected a knock at her door one night. A note, a gesture, but nothing came. And that was its own answer. She realized then what she'd suspected in the ballroom. Logan hadn't just lied. He had lived in a framework where consequences were optional. Until now. Serena walked to the drawer where she'd stored the NDA and pulled it out. She didn't rip it up. She burned it. She lit the edge in her kitchen sink with a long match, watched the flame curl the corners inward, turned on the faucet when it was done, and watched the ashes swirl down the drain. Not out of rage, out of closure. She cleaned the sink, then brewed tea, then sat down to write, not to post, not to expose, just to remember the truth in her own words. Because memory was a kind of justice too. It was a Wednesday afternoon. The email arrived in Serena's inbox with a subject line that simply read, "Peace." The sender, Maya Holston. Serena stared at it for several minutes before opening it. The message was short. "Hi Serena, I debated sending this. I'm not writing to compare wounds or stories. I'm writing because we were both used to keep someone else's world intact. I'm not angry at you. I hope you're not angry at me. If you ever want to speak, not about him but about how we go forward, I'm here. Maya." Serena didn't reply right away. She read the message twice. Then again. There was no pity in it, no bonding over pain, no subtle manipulation, just honesty, clean and open. That night, she sat on her balcony with a blanket around her shoulders, the ring now gone from her hand, her heart a little steadier. She opened her laptop and typed a response. "Maya, thank you. I'm not angry at you either. I've been asking myself what moving forward looks like. Maybe it looks like truth without shame. I'd be willing to talk." Serena. She clicked send, then closed the laptop. She didn't know what would come next between them, whether they'd ever speak again, or whether the exchange would end there. But reaching out to each other as women, unshaken by performance, undistracted by pride, was its own kind of healing. And Serena was ready for that. They met at a small cafe on the north side of the city. No press, no confrontation, just two women who had survived the same storm from different angles. Serena chose the booth by the window. She ordered tea, then waited without checking her phone. Maya arrived 6 minutes later, coat buttoned to the neck, eyes tired but alert. She looked around once, then sat across from Serena without a word. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Maya reached into her bag, pulled out a pair of gloves, and folded them neatly beside her coffee cup. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she said. Her tone wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. It was measured, cautious. Serena nodded. "I figured it was time." Maya gave a slow exhale. 7 years ago, Logan and I got married quietly. His team thought public attention would distract from expansion talks. With overseas investors, so we signed paperwork without ceremony. Serena stayed silent. Maya continued. "He traveled a lot, even in the beginning. At first I understood. Then the gaps grew longer. He became harder to reach. He never yelled, never raised his voice. He just disappeared in pieces." She picked up her cup, but didn't sip. He would return like nothing happened, smile, bring gifts, act like absence didn't cost anything. Serena lowered her eyes. Maya went on. "The only reason I stayed was because I was too embarrassed to explain to anyone that I'd married someone who saw me as decoration." Serena looked up at her. "Did he ever admit he was seeing someone else?" Maya shook her head. "He never mentioned you. Not once." She finally took a sip of her drink. "They told me to keep quiet, that speaking up would make me look bitter, that I'd be hurting the company. They always found a way to make silence seem noble." Serena pressed her palms against the table's edge, grounding herself. "He wasn't just hiding you," Maya said quietly. "He was hiding us both." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was sobering. Serena studied the woman across from her, not through the lens of betrayal, but with a sharp new understanding. Maya wasn't a rival. She wasn't competition. She was a reflection of what happens when someone manipulates loyalty on multiple fronts. Serena leaned back slightly. "I thought I was careful," she said. "Told myself I was paying attention, that I was asking the right questions." "You probably were," Maya said. I kept my own apartment. I kept my job. I watched his patterns. And he made sure the pieces stayed just far enough apart that nothing overlapped, Maya replied. Serena exhaled, eyes fixed on her half-empty cup. It wasn't your fault, Maya added. The words hit different, not because they were comforting, but because they were earned. I told myself I was the exception, Serena said. Maya nodded. So did I. They sat with that for a moment. Two women, once in orbit around the same man, now finding gravity in each other's words. You didn't owe me this, Serena said. I didn't do it for closure, Maya answered. I did it because I'm done playing small to make others comfortable. Serena's lips curved, faintly. They weren't allies, not yet, but they were no longer strangers forced into opposition by a man who benefited from the distance between them. He treated the truth like an inconvenience, Serena murmured. Maya added softly, and us like variables. Serena looked up again, finally seeing Maya clearly, not as someone who stole anything, but as someone who had also lost what she never deserved to beg for. They weren't on opposite sides. They had been standing in the same shadow the whole time. They ordered more tea. Maya stirred hers slowly before speaking again. I didn't plan to be a mother. Faith wasn't part of the timeline. But when she came, I knew I'd never let her grow up in silence. Serena nodded, listening. She's smart, Maya said. Too smart. She watches everything. Serena smiled slightly. That sounds familiar. Maya gave a light laugh. It was the first moment of softness between them. She started asking about Logan when she was old enough to understand absence. I didn't lie, but I didn't spill everything either. I told her he was busy, that he worked hard, that he loved her. Serena looked out the window. That was the truth once, Maya added quietly, or at least I believed it. Serena thought about the child from the ballroom, the way she had looked up at Logan without fear, the way her features mirrored his. That wasn't something you could hide. She deserves answers, Maya said. She deserves consistency, Serena replied. Maya's expression tightened. Which he doesn't offer. They both fell quiet again. Would you ever let him back in? Serena asked. Maya didn't hesitate. Only if he earns it. With presence, with action. Not statements. Serena nodded. That's what I wanted too. They sat for a while longer, not rushing resolution, just holding space. Faith wasn't just Logan's daughter. She was the reality he could no longer control with contracts or curated image. And both women now understood that the cost of pretending was far greater than the pain of confronting. 2 weeks later, Serena agreed to meet again. This time, at a small art exhibit for children downtown. Maya had mentioned Faith would be attending with her preschool class. Serena wasn't sure why she said yes, but something in her had wanted to see the child again, in a place that didn't carry echoes of betrayal. The gallery was bright and filled with children's drawings taped to whiteboards and canvas displays, crayon sunrises, stick figure families, bold swirls of color. Serena arrived just as Maya was kneeling beside Faith, helping her straighten a painting labeled with her name. Faith turned around. Her eyes met Serena's. There was no recognition, of course, but there was curiosity. Maya stood, gesturing gently. Faith, this is Serena. The little girl looked up, blinking. She helped me pick out flowers, Maya added, offering context a child could understand. Serena smiled and crouched. Hi, Faith. I like your painting. Do you see the blue part? Faith asked, pointing. Yes. What is it? That's the sky, before the stars come out. Serena's throat tightened. She nodded, eyes lingering on the soft strokes of the crayon. Do you like to draw? Faith asked. I do, Serena said. Very much. Faith grinned, then turned and ran to join her classmates. Maya stood beside Serena in the quiet that followed. She doesn't know yet, she said, but she'll grow up understanding that truth matters. Serena kept her eyes on the painting. That's the most important thing, she said. They didn't speak after that. But as Serena walked away, she felt the weight of the moment settle deeper than she expected. Not because of regret, because of what almost was. and what would never be. The fallout came faster than Logan expected. Less than 72 hours after the Manhattan party collapsed into quiet disgrace, headlines began surfacing in business columns. The stories didn't name Serena or Maya directly, but the message was clear. Logan Riley, CEO of Thorn Global, had been caught managing two lives. A leaked email thread between internal executives surfaced on a tech news platform. It hinted at conflicts of interest, ethics concerns, and misalignment between personal conduct and public image. By the end of the week, the board requested an emergency meeting. No press release followed, no statement was issued. But internally, the pressure mounted. Shareholders wanted clarity, legal teams wanted containment, public relations wanted distance, and Logan, once the man who moved rooms with precision, was suddenly fielding questions he couldn't control. His assistant resigned quietly. A strategic partner in Toronto paused expansion talks. An executive from their Zurich branch submitted a formal inquiry into Logan's leadership standing. Behind the scenes, he was unraveling, but not visibly. He still wore the suit, still showed up to meetings, still signed memos, but he no longer walked with ease. Because now, every room he entered had someone whispering before he arrived. And the empire he built on silence was finally making noise. While Logan's name circled the business world in quiet embarrassment, Serena's work spoke louder than any rumor ever could. Back in Chicago, she arrived at her office every morning with the same discipline that had carried her through rejection, stress, and long nights for years. But this time, something had shifted. Her team noticed it. She was still focused, but sharper, still calm, but firmer. There was no trace of hesitation in her decisions anymore. She had crossed a threshold, one where she no longer second-guessed her intuition. Her latest campaign pitch landed a national retail account. Her strategy deck became the new benchmark across departments. Junior staff asked to shadow her meetings, not because she was friendly, but because she moved with clarity. 2 weeks after her return from New York, the head of the firm called her in. "We'd like to move you into a senior brand executive role," he said. "Effective next month." Serena blinked. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. You've earned every inch of this." It wasn't about Logan. It wasn't about revenge. It was about finally stepping into everything she had worked for, on her own name, her own merit, her own terms. She walked out of the meeting and paused by the elevator. Not to call anyone. Not to celebrate. Just to let the moment sink in. Not every win needed applause. Some just needed acknowledgement. It was raining. Not heavily, just enough for people to pull their coats tighter and move faster across the sidewalk. Serena stood by the window in her office, reviewing client projections, when her assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Serena, someone's here to see you." He didn't make an appointment. She already knew who. "Tell him I'm busy," Serena said without flinching. There was a pause. "He says he won't take long." Serena closed her laptop slowly. 5 minutes later, her door opened. Logan stepped inside, damp from the weather, his shoulders set, expression unreadable. He hadn't changed much, but he didn't move with the same certainty he once had. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. "I didn't say I would," she replied. He nodded once, not surprised. "I won't waste your time," he said. "I came to say I'm sorry, not just for what happened, but for how I handled everything." Serena said nothing. He continued. "I let power excuse behavior I never should have justified. I told myself that silence protected people, but it only protected me." Still, Serena didn't speak. "I didn't expect forgiveness," he said. "I came to offer accountability." Now she looked at him, really looked. And for the first time, he looked small, not physically, but in the way someone looks when they finally realize their actions no longer hold the weight they used to. Serena stood from her chair, slow and steady. She walked to the window, arms crossed, watching the city move beneath the gray sky. "You lied," she said, not loud, not angry. "You let me stand in front of a room filled with your colleagues and your reputation and your history, and you said nothing." Logan nodded once. "You watched me plan my life around your words. You knew what that ring meant. You knew how much I protected my peace. And still, you said nothing. He opened his mouth, but she raised her hand. I don't want more words, she said. You had plenty of those. A pause. You broke what money can't fix, Logan. He flinched slightly. Trust, she added. Not just mine. Maya's, your daughter's, your own name. Logan exhaled. I know. Serena turned to face him. I'm not angry anymore. I've done that. I've cried. I've questioned. I've carried it. He looked at her, not pleading, just present. I don't hate you, she finished. But I also don't belong to your story anymore. He nodded again, this time slower. I understand. She walked back to her desk. You can go now. He lingered for 1 second too long, then turned, opened the door, and stepped out. Serena sat back down, picked up her pen, and returned to her notes. The rain outside continued. But inside, everything was clear. By early spring, Chicago had thawed. The chill that once lingered in Serena's bones had lifted, not just because of the season, but because life, slowly and intentionally, had begun to bloom again. She didn't announce her healing. She lived it. Every Tuesday evening, Serena opened the door to a quiet community room on the west side. It wasn't glamorous. The walls were plain. The chairs didn't match. But the women who showed up filled the space with questions, honesty, and hunger for something better. The program had started as an idea, just a note she scribbled in her phone one night after rereading the email from Maya. She remembered what it felt like to doubt her instincts, to shrink herself for someone else's image. So she built something new. She called it Clear Voice. It was free, donation-based, designed to help young women, mostly in their 20s, navigate career choices, boundaries, emotional clarity, and self-worth. She didn't teach from a pedestal. She sat in a circle with them. Some weeks they talked about negotiating salaries, other weeks about recovering from betrayal, how to leave with dignity, how to stay without losing yourself. Serena didn't share everything from her own story, but she let them see that healing wasn't perfect, and that strength wasn't always loud. She watched them grow, and somewhere in the process, she realized she was growing too, not because she was teaching, but because she had stopped performing. The apartment walls had been beige for 4 years, safe, neutral, forgettable. One Saturday, Serena stood by her kitchen window and realized she no longer needed safety from her own surroundings. She called her father. I want to paint, she said. His voice smiled. I'll bring the rollers. They spent the entire weekend moving furniture, patching old nail holes, and arguing playfully over color tones. Her father preferred cool grays. Serena wanted warmth. They settled on a muted olive for the bedroom and a soft almond cream for the living room, colors that breathed but didn't demand. They played old jazz records while working, ate takeout between coats. Her father didn't talk about Logan. He didn't need to. His silence held respect. At one point while taping off the hallway, he said, You're doing all right, kid. Serena didn't cry, but she paused. Because it wasn't just about paint. It was about reclaiming space. The ring had long been boxed away. The last dress she wore in Manhattan had been donated. The apartment, once wrapped in a story she was trying to write around someone else, was finally hers again. By Sunday evening, the walls dried, and the place looked different. Not new. True, it wasn't a setup. It wasn't a grand entrance. It was a Tuesday evening at the local library. Serena had stopped by to return a book from one of her mentorship group's reading sessions. A quiet title on emotional resilience. Nothing flashy. He was at the community board near the exit, pinning up a flyer for a neighborhood cleanup. His name was Malik, mid-30s, clear eyes, rough hands from working in restoration and historic wood repair. He smiled easily, spoke slowly, asked questions without assuming answers. They ended up talking by the exit for 20 minutes, about community, about the condition of the playground down the street, about the cost of keeping good books in circulation. He didn't ask for her number. He asked if she'd be at the cleanup. She showed up the next Saturday. They spent the afternoon picking up trash, repainting benches and sharing stories about family, failure, and lessons learned the hard way. Over the following weeks, they met for coffee, walked the lakefront, talked between errands. He never mentioned money, never tried to impress. He listened, showed up, remembered things she said. He didn't talk about what he wanted from her. He asked about what brought her peace. One evening in late May, Serena sat on her newly painted balcony, a cup of ginger tea warming her hand. Malik had just left. They had spent the evening rearranging her bookshelf, laughing over old titles, arguing lightly over poetry versus philosophy. He kissed her cheek on his way out. Not rushed, not unsure. Now, the sky stretched in a quiet fade of lavender. Serena breathed it in. She wasn't in love, not yet. But she was unafraid. She no longer reached for relationships to fill the space of worth. She no longer looked for someone to anchor her. She had already learned how to hold steady on her own. The heartbreak hadn't erased her. It had refined her. Her phone buzzed. A message from Maya. Faith started a new art project today. She painted the sun bigger than the house. Thought you'd smile at that. Serena replied, "That's how it should be. Big light, steady center." She looked out again at the night, quiet, but not empty. No jets, no villas, no promises wrapped in silk. Just breath, just presence, just life. The auditorium at the West Loop Community Center was almost full. Serena stood at the front, leading the final session of the Clear Voice Spring series. Young women from all over the city had gathered, some students, some early in their careers, all searching for something more solid than attention, clarity, direction, self-worth. She guided them through the topic of the day, when saying no is a form of self-respect. Her voice was steady, not rehearsed. She didn't perform, she shared. As the group broke into smaller circles to reflect, Serena stepped down to the floor, walking between tables and listening in. That's when she saw them. Near the back, Maya, standing quietly near the door, and beside her, Faith. The child looked taller now. Her curls were longer, her stance more confident. She wore a small denim jacket with pink stitching and clutched a notebook too big for her hands. Serena paused. Maya offered a nod of greeting, not interrupting. Serena smiled. During a break, she walked over to them. "Hi," she said gently. Faith looked up, her eyes wide, curious. "I remember you," the girl said. Serena knelt, her knees touching the clean wood floor. "You were painting the sky last time I saw you." Faith nodded. "I painted it bigger this time." Serena smiled. "That's good. It means you believe in more light." Faith held up her notebook. "I drew a new one. This one has a sun and a bird. Can I see it?" Faith opened the page and held it up proudly. Serena studied the shapes. "It's beautiful." Faith tilted her head. "Do you still read books?" "Every week." Faith grinned. "Me too." They shared a quiet glance. No tension, no shadows. Just a child and a woman, both standing in full light. Maya didn't speak. She didn't need to. Serena rose, touched Maya's hand briefly, then returned to the front of the room. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Later that day, as the crowd cleared and folding chairs were stacked, Faith returned. Serena was organizing materials at the front when she felt a soft tap on her arm. Faith stood there, holding a juice box and a folded piece of paper. "This is for you," she said. Serena took the paper, unfolding it slowly. It was another drawing. Stick figures, a sun, and a house with a tree next to it. "Is this your home?" Serena asked. "No," Faith said. "It's yours. I drew you standing outside. That's a lemon tree." Serena blinked. "Why a lemon tree?" "Because you told the truth, even when it hurt," Faith answered. "That's what makes the tree grow." Serena didn't reply for a moment. She knelt again, eyes level with the child's. "You're going to grow up strong," she said. "But don't let that strength stop you from being soft too." Faith nodded once, like she understood. "I don't see him much," she whispered. "But that's okay." Serena reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from the girl's forehead. "I think you're going to be just fine." Maya watched from a distance. She didn't interrupt. Her silence now held no bitterness, only peace. Faith wrapped her arms around Serena's neck, a quick, sure hug, then skipped back to her mother. Serena stood and watched them walk out. There were no flashbacks, no wounds reopening. Only peace, and that, more than closure, felt final. Weeks passed, then months. Serena's days filled with work, mentoring, quiet dinners, and small joys. Books finished, windows open on breezy evenings, candles burned to the wick. Her friends noticed the change, not loud but visible. She smiled more, rested more, laughed without checking herself. Logan's name came up once, in a group conversation about workplace ethics. Someone mentioned Thorn Global. Someone else mentioned an article. Serena said nothing. No bitterness rose. No tension bloomed. It wasn't avoidance. It was choice. He was no longer part of her vocabulary, not out of shame, but because she'd grown beyond the version of herself that needed to repeat the lesson. She didn't check headlines, didn't revisit emails. She didn't need to tell people what happened. She had already lived it and left it. Instead, she shared what came after, how healing wasn't linear, how peace isn't always instant, and how loving again starts with loving yourself first. Logan had once been a defining chapter. Now, he was a closed one, without malice, without edits, just done. Dinner was quiet. Serena had cooked, nothing elaborate, baked salmon, roasted vegetables, and a salad with too much lemon, but Malik didn't mind. He never made a show of gratitude. He just enjoyed everything with the ease of someone who didn't expect more than he received. Afterward, they sat on the floor of the living room. The record player spun something soft in the background. The dishes still sat in the sink. "I'll get those," Malik said, standing slowly. "You don't have to," Serena replied. He smiled. "I know, but you cooked, so I clean." She watched him carry the plates to the kitchen. No performance, no points to earn, just kindness, routine, and shared space. He returned with 2 mugs of tea, ginger for her, peppermint for himself, and sat beside her again. They didn't talk about the future. They talked about the present, what book she was reading, how his work week had gone, which neighbor's kid kept drawing chalk outlines in front of the building. Serena leaned into him lightly, the way someone leans into a rhythm they trust. No grand declarations, no timelines, just presence. And presence, she had learned, was more valuable than promises. She glanced toward the kitchen. Everything felt steady, clean, whole. He didn't promise me forever. He showed up today. Let this be your reminder. You don't need extravagant words to be loved. You don't need a perfect history to be healed. You don't have to explain why you left someone who refused to grow. You don't owe anyone access to your peace after they broke your trust. Wholeness is quiet. Healing is personal. And peace doesn't perform. Sometimes, the people who hurt you most taught you exactly how to protect your future. Sometimes, starting over means building slower, softer, safer. And sometimes, peace looks like a small kitchen, a quiet dinner, and someone who washes the dishes without being asked. You are allowed to begin again, and you're allowed to do it without spectacle. Dear God, thank you for the strength to walk away when silence became heavy. Thank you for the wisdom to choose peace instead of revenge. Thank you for showing me that truth doesn't beg to be heard, it simply stands. Help me trust again, not blindly but boldly. Help me choose kindness, but never at the cost of my clarity. Remind me that I do not have to earn love with pain. Let my life reflect patience, not performance. Let my relationships be rooted in presence, not empty promises. Keep me grounded. Keep me open. Keep me whole. Amen.